Alright, so today we are talking about why you should know your type. And it's very important, especially kama umefika point yenye you are feeling you are ready to go into marriage, you are ready to go into a long-term relationship. You need to know your type. Kwa nini? Because it's very important for you to understand your type so that you don't end up with somebody who you're probably incompatible with, ama somebody you don't find attractive. You know how hard it is to be in a relationship with somebody you don't find attractive. So that's why it's important for you to understand your type. What's your type? All right, so the number one thing you need to consider is when you know your type, you focus more on that. Okay, so anytime you know you want somebody mwenye anakaa hivi, unataka mtu ako na characteristic iko hivi, and it can go down to personality, it can go down to what they've studied. Probably you are looking for somebody mwenye at least akona degree, mwenye at least akona you know, ameenda shule, amemaliza college, amemaliza probably hata kama ni high school. If that's your level that you are playing at, you need to understand that probably hizo ni vitu zenye unafaa kujua in details, because you want the kind of, wewe ndio una dictate the kind of person that you want for your life. All right, so if you want somebody mwenye amesoma sana, there is an advantage that comes with that. If you want somebody mwenye ameachieve vitu different things in their life, there's an advantage that comes with that. Hata kusema when you think about your type, you can even also be thinking about unataka mse ameandikwa kazi ama mse mwenye anafanya biashara yake. So those are the things you need to consider, especially when you want to settle down. You need to know your type. The other reason why it's so important, because number one, inakusaidianga kufocus. So you always focus on, okay, kama hana hizi vitu, then maybe that's not your type. Maybe your type number one kwa list inakuanga actually the skin complexion. Maybe unataka mtu light skin, maybe unataka mtu dark skin. So anytime you meet somebody who is light skin, or probably your preference ni dark skin, you find that either unawa ignore ama you do not focus too much on them. So that's why I'm talking about focus, because now when you know your type, you focus on the one that you want. Una focus on, mi nataka mse light skin, that's what you're gonna go for. All right, another thing about knowing your type ni ati, ama why it's important, it's because the minute you know your type, you start to see them. Kuna mtu tulikuwa tunaongea naye on the live show on TikTok, and she was actually telling me that the minute you know your type, even when you go into a room, your mind can already pick out matype wako hapa ni akina nani. Have you ever been in a room, let's say either you're a lady or a guy, you go into a room and then kumeja watu wengi, and it's almost like of the opposite gender, you can be able to spot hapa nezataka kuongelesha nani, and it's almost your mind is sieving out every other person according to the type and preference that you want in a person. So unasema probably mimi nataka mse mrefu, so it's, you know, so watu wote short hautawaona, utaona tu wale wase warefu au ndio uta notice. So it's so important for you, because that's what you attract. All right, so whatever you say that your type is, how ndio utakuna attract. If you're a lady, if you want a guy who is tall, if you're always talking to short guys, you're not attracting tall men. Okay, so if you want a tall guy, it means you need to put it in your mind that, by the way, mimi I'm impressed by tall, you know. If you're a lady, you're impressed by tall guys. So unapata anytime, even when you go into a room, unaonanga tu, yani you notice, those are the people you notice. You really don't notice every other person. Okay, that's important. The other reason why it's important for you to understand your type is that it makes you know your value, because kama najua type yangu ni mtu anakaa hivi, you see, it affirms me of my value. Najua, by the way, enyewe me, you know, I'm not siko tu pali popote. I won't just go out with anyone because you have a type. Okay, so it lets you know of your value, and it validates and affirms that value that you have of yourself. Whatever you think about yourself, at least unakuwa affirmed, because you know, by the way, mimi hata huyo, you know, as much as somebody would want to talk badly about you, as much as somebody would want to take you for granted, unakatu hapo uko like, wewe hata si type yangu, you know. And most of the times, sometimes, you know, that's freedom in itself, kujua that this is not your person. I mean, this is not your type, this is not your type, so you don't end up wasting too much time. And that's the other thing, when you know your type, una avoid to waste time mob, because sasa ukijua type yako, you don't waste time with people who are not your type. All right, and it can be anything. It can be education, it can be their skin complexion, inaweza kuwa ni their mannerism, venye wanajibeba, personality yao, venye mtu anafikiria, you know. And you can go down, you can understand. When you understand all those things, ukishajua type yako, you understand that you don't waste too much time. The other important thing yati, when you understand your type, you don't give other people false hope. Okay, let's say wewe unajua personality ya mtu mwenye unataka, and then you find somebody else who is not of that personality. you know you won't end up wasting their time because you're like, hey, by the way, umse wacha nisimwestie time, let me just tell them that maybe they are not, ama they don't fit the type of person mwenye nataka. All right. And the other thing also, hata nikiongelea hiyo story ya why it gives you value ama why it affirms your value, because you're not just ready to settle down with anyone, because the minute umejua type yako, you're more keen on people. So hata mtu akikuja kukuongelesha, you're very keen to understand, do they have everything that I want? Unaanza kutikizo boxes. Okay, anafanya hivi, unatikio box. So every time you tick those boxes and you find out that probably this person is missing out on one thing or the other, hapo sasa ndo unaweza jua what can I compromise, what can't I compromise. Maybe unaweza compromise on the skin complexion, but you can't compromise on the education level that you want your person to be with. Okay, reason nyingine why it's important to know your type is because even when it gets to a point where unasikianga watu wanakuambianga, pray for your person, pray that you get the person that is right for you. Even time when unaombea, when you're making those prayer about your marital destiny, about the person that you want to end up with, unapata that most of the times you are actually specific on what you want. Okay, so unaweza grow that faith to know, by the way, I want a certain person, this is what I want them to look like, hivi ndio na imagine wanaweza kaa. So you will end up getting that person. So you only have to believe that type yenye unataka ndio utapata. Okay, the type that you want, the type of person that you want, imagine that's the person that you're gonna get. Okay, and the reason for that is because even sometimes you might find that you are aligned to be with a certain person because of the purpose of your life, I believe. Okay, unaweza pata wewe unasemanga tu unataka mtu anakaa hivi na hivi na hivi, but kumbe it's because of your purpose. You know where you are heading, so you know the kind of partner that you want. Especially for the men, if you're looking for like a wife, you have to have a strong wife, especially if you know vision yako ni kubwa. Hutaki mtu mwenye atakuja kukuanza slow down. So that's why you need to know your type, because you need to know who's gonna take you to the next level of your life. Ni nani mtaweza kuelevate na yeye. Then that's why people get shocked, that's why people get surprised when they get to a point where ana realize aliend up na mtu, na huyo mtu, it's almost like they don't grow on the same level. Why? Because you went probably for a type you didn't understand, ama you went for a type mwenye hakuwa type yako. So for them, maybe you are their type, but for you they were not your type. Okay, and that's where you find people wanakuambia, some people settle down for less. And it's true, some people settle down for less. Hata ikikuja ni marriage, somehow it does work out, but most of the times unapata kuna pahali hawakuelewana. Is it can you really change a person to elevate venye wanafikiria? Maybe, but not all the times. Si kila time unaweza sema you'll change somebody, their thinking, their personality, their mindset, their vision. Si kila mtu unaweza change, but people change over time. All right, another thing also you need to consider is, anytime you know your type, because tuseme like this is the kind of person you want, na maybe umemweka pale juu, ama you want a certain type, especially if you are a guy, unataka dem fulani yako na class, unataka dem yako na kazi, unataka dem yako na nini, those things zitakufanya work hard. Okay, that's also another thing, it will make you work hard, because kama unataka dem high class, of course as a guy uta work hard ndio upate huo dem, ama you will kind of even work on your life and work on yourself so that you can be in a position where you can be able to attract such a lady. All right, so that's why it's important to know your type. But kama umekaa tu hapo unasema mwenye atakuja akuje, ama mwenye nitaseto na yeye wacha akuje, then you're not being intentional about your life. So you find at some point hata hauko motivated, because to you it's like wacha akuje tuta struggle, ama wacha akuje tutatafuta, ama wacha akuje tutajua venye tutafanya. Okay, so sometimes that's not the right mindset. Even when you're thinking of settling down, lazima ukwe so focused to jue, okay, this is the kind of person that I want. All right, the other thing also is, when you know your type, you find that those are the people you start to attract. All of a sudden unaanza kupatana na watu wamesoma, ama let's say your type, probably you want somebody with a vision. So the minute you start thinking about it, because you are releasing that energy, okay, I'm just speaking from a point of how I assume that it happens, unaanza kuattract hawa wase. So you find yourself in rooms where you find intelligent people, kama we ni sapiosexual, even whatever you are posting online, unapata ina attract the people that you want. Whatever you are posting about you, whatever things you are talking about, unapata inaendelea tu ku attract wale wase wenye that are actually your type. So it's important sana, and it's very amazing to imagine that whatever you think about and whatever you consider in your mind, hiyo ndio unaanzanga ku attract. As a man thinketh, so he is. So anytime you attract, unaanza kusema mimi by the way naweza pata dem high class, mimi by the way, you will find pole even as a guy ukisema mimi by the way I want to attract ladies who are beautiful, utajipata pole you start talking to more beautiful ladies. For me it got to a point where nika realize how come like it's almost like in my circle, ama wale unaangalia wale wasichana unaongelesha una realize they are not beautiful ladies, ama kama wako ni kiasi. I'm saying all ladies are beautiful, right? But sasa tunajua kuna wale wenye huyu ni mrembo kuliko wengine, like she's up there. So at some point it got to a point in my life and I was like, why am I not attracting such people? And you know what I realized that sikuwa na waongelesha. I wasn't going for the people that I find attractive. Nilikuwa najaribu everyone, I was just talking to everyone, but then I hadn't focused that by the way naweza choose kuongelesha tu dem rembo. Like when I go into a room, I can go in there and actually pick out the prettiest lady in that room and have a conversation with him. Hata kama sitapewa namba, hata kama atanilenga, but I tried. So the more you find yourself, especially as a guy, juu sisi ndio tunaendeanga madem, unapata if you find yourself in that situation where you are open-minded, you are like, I will always go for the prettiest ladies, within no time you will find hata ukipata na dem rembo how feel intimidated. Why? Because umeishi kuzoea kuongelesha your type, okay? Because you want pretty ladies, ama you want probably light skin ladies. Sama unataka masoshi, unataka masocialite, utajipata pole those are the people you are attracting, because already energy yako imekuwa suited to the type of person that you want. Alright, let me give you an example. Ushaiangalia sometimes hawa wase wenye tunaitanga soshi celebrities nini, have you ever looked at the people who date them? Ama sometimes ukaangalia wale wase wenye wana attracting, maybe it's their boyfriend na nini, unapatanga most of the times they're just ordinary people. Unamwangalia unashindwa huyu ndio chalia huyu dem, and you'd expect ati dem ni celebrity, dem anajulikana, ati atakuwa na chali mwingine mwenye he's out of this world, but you realize it's just an ordinary guy, a normal guy mwenye amejituma, ako confident, ashajigrow, so ashajua huyu ndio dem nataka ku attract. Okay, so it's very important. So even for you right there, if you want to attract celebrities, put it in your mind, unajipatanga tu unaongeleshanga tu masoshi, wasi wanajulikana, ma celebrities, people who are influential. If as a lady you tell yourself I only want to attract rich men, anza kuweka that thing in your mind. Utaona within time utaanza kuchange hadi venye unavaa. You'll start changing how you dress, you'll start changing how you carry yourself, where you go to hang out, because at the back of your mind you are attracting these people. So everything starts to work out because you shall realize this is the direction that you want to go. So every time you set a direction, every time you set like a focus, unasema these are the type of people that I want for my life, unapata sasa hao unajipata within no time it's almost like life starts to position you, vitu zinaanza tu kuwork out. Unajipata haya unaanza kujiona na businessmen, unaanza kujiona na women entrepreneurs, ama naweza sema aje independent ladies, if you are that kind of a guy. So know your type today, and I'd also tell you, write it down, so that hata wewe mwenyewe ukiwa nako ka list, you always go back to it to go like, oh, by the way, umsi ametick boxes zangu, what am I willing to compromise, what am I willing to overlook? Yeah, so that's why you should know your type. Tell me in the comment section why you think you should actually know your type.
Gachin Lion.